Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. No, Tuesday. I'm a day early already. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully, this is broadcasting through the way it is supposed to be. Seeing a couple of eyeballs on, but please do jot a hello in the comments. Excuse me, I got my water tonight. My throat is a little froggy tonight, so you'll have to bear with me. But we are in for a treat tonight. I've actually been prepping this afternoon and having lots of fun playing with these various shadow boxes and all of that good stuff. And really excited to give you a hands-on demonstration of these spectacular little kits. One of the best parts is that little red maple leaf there. These shadow boxes, they are paint by layer craft kits. They are from a company called Our Little Makery out of Alberta. I had been following her on Instagram for a little while and then learned she was going to be in Toronto at a vendor show. So I said, Matt, what are we doing tomorrow? He said, nothing. I said, well, we are going to the Toronto Gift Show. And that's where we met Lindsay, who, if I remember correctly, is a school teacher. Thank you, Josie, for letting me know you can hear me loud and clear. That's always a good thing. Lindsay is, I believe, a school teacher, and she developed these kits. And when it says on the kits that it is for ages 6 to 96, that has officially been tested because she tested them with her 6-year-old daughter and her 96-year-old grandmother. So we're in for a treat tonight. And in fact, thanks to Lindsay and some hard work from her team, we got some restocks on some of the kits that we have already sold out on and brought in 2 new ones as well. So I'm going to show you those samples. Maybe I'll start off by showing a few samples. We'll unbox a kit and then we'll actually get painting. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. Thank you for joining me on this. I guess it's our second Learning Live of December, and we are in for some fun. So let me just switch over to my desktop camera and let's get painting. So these shadow box kits are kind of interesting, really interesting. And until you actually see them in action, they're not necessarily what you think they are. I've got a couple of samples here. We've got some more samples as well, but they're in boxes, so I'll show you those at the end. This is one that I just finished today. It is a hockey-themed winter scene. I know we've got lots of hockey families out there in our community, and you can see that they are about, what is that? Maybe just over an inch thick. And when the kit says paint by layers, that is exactly what we're going to do. All of these different layers come apart, we paint them up, and then we glue them all together. So this is a really fun one for hockey families. And this one here is a super adorable Santa one for Christmas. This one is called Magical Skies. Thank you to my friend Gail who helped me put these together, and Catherine did one as well, and I did this one, and then the team has done a couple. And you can bring in stuff from your own crafting stash as well, and we'll talk about that as we go along. So those are 2 samples. Let me put those off to the side here. We'll go through all the kits again at the end. I think my screen is okay. This is what a kit looks like when you receive it or when you purchase it. So it comes in this cute little box, and everything you need in order to make this kit is in this box. Now, like I said, there are some things you may want to pull from your stash, because you can do these, like many crafts, you can do it exactly as instructed, or you can change it up. You can go rogue, as we call it. You can do different things. So inside the box, open it up. First and foremost, you're going to start with, these are your actual wood pieces, and they are nicely wrapped in plastic. I've got another one open over here that we're going to demo with, but all of your layers are here, nice, tightly wrapped, safely protected in the box. Also in the box is your paints. So you get, what is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get 18 different little pots of paint. And so far, I have not run out of paint. There are some that I'm close to running out, depending on how big the surface is. And for example, on my hockey one, where I've been doing the yellow on the side, that I honestly think I need to do another coat on this one just to finish it up. But that one is using a lot of the paint. But for the most part, all of this paint is going to last you at least for your kids and probably a little bit further. So that's your paint. Over here in a separate little pot, labeled glue is just that. It is glue. In fact, it is Mod Podge. So I think most crafters have Mod Podge in their stash. If you need more glue, you can pull it out. The other thing I was using today is my Distress Collage Medium. I found it a little bit easier to have the nozzle in some of those areas versus the little glue pot. But if you're doing this, say, with your grandchildren or with a younger crafter, the glue pot is just fine, and it'll give you all the real estate that you need. You do get a paintbrush. This little makeup looking sponge is your glue applicator. So this is what you use to put the glue on the surfaces. Or again, you could use a foam brush, you could use a sponge, anything that you have in your stash. Now, I believe all the kits, if not most of the kits, have two of these pieces as well. And they are to go together to make your little easel stand. So if you wanted to display this little stand, it's hard to tell from the top, but this little stand just, it's like a plate stand. It gives you that display ability. Now, most of these, because they are thick enough, they can stand on their own as well. And some of them do have that extra little hook at the top if you would rather hang it. So lots of options there from a display standpoint. So that's in your kit. And then there is some paperwork. And it's fun paperwork. Now I think, one of these is French, one of these is English. So we'll just look at the English one. This gives you a basic step-by-step set of instructions on how to go about painting and assembling this. There is also a QR code to her video. She's got a few different videos on her website, but honestly, it's pretty intuitive and you're going to be able to figure it out. And then last but not least is this cute little chart here. You've got 18 colors of paint, but say you want that 19th color or that 27th color. This is giving you a little cheat sheet on how to mix colors in order to get different paint colors. I think we all can go back to kindergarten and remember our color matching, but just in case, this is just that handy little cheat sheet so you don't have to think about it. So that is everything that comes in your kit. I'm going to put this one away because I'm pretty sure somebody is going to want this frosty kit. So it's going to go back to the store, and we will get out the one that we're going to paint tonight. Now, I did already start and do it a little bit of prep, but we'll talk about that when I get it out. So this one's going to go over here. Other things you are going to want. So you're obviously going to want a surface to paint on. I've got my glass mat here, but you could also pull out, one of your sheets of dust pad, some newsprint, just something, because you will 100% get paint on your desktop. So make sure that it is protected. You will want some water. I've got 2 little jars here. One is probably enough, but because I'm on camera and can't run to get clean water, I've got 2 of them sitting here. I do also recommend a pencil, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks as I have made a couple of these now, some things that I have learned along the way. Maybe have some toothpicks on hand. There are little nooks and crannies that a toothpick will help you clean out and get into some of those areas where the paint might get in and you don't want it. I do have a little bit of scrap paper here just in case I need to wipe anything else off. And what else? Oh, well, I've got baby wipes and paper towel. This is not a not messy project. It's not super messy. It's certainly within my wheelhouse in terms of mess versus no mess. But you are at times going to want to wipe your hands. You are going to want to wipe your surface. And your paper towel will be good for when you are cleaning off your brush. Because you do only have the one brush in your kit. Of course, pull from your stash if you want. But I've done these shadow kits with just one brush. So you will be fine with that. Okay, I think that's it. I'll bring in some other things as we go along, but just to get started, that is the things that you should have. I've got my paints off to the side here. Totally up to you as to whether you snip them apart. I personally found it, and I've worked with them both ways. I found it easier to leave them together because it gives it some weight. If you've only got one little pot, you're juggling trying to hold the pot, hold the lid open, dip your brush in, get it to your piece, back and forth, whereas this gives it a little bit of an anchor, and I just personally found it a little bit easier to manipulate. So those are going to go off to the side. We are going to do that this one is called Frosty. So this one here, that's the same one that I opened the box for. So this is what the sample one looks like, and it's got this little garland of lights, the lights here. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a boo-boo where the first set of Frosty ones we got in, the little bulbs got cut off in a manufacturing error. And Lindsay was fantastic about getting those replaced. So I'm going to use that for my sample one. I'm going to show you some different ways that you can fix things like that if we can't fix it for you, or again, if you wanted to do something different, but know that the new ones that we've got in do have those bulbs on there. I've unwrapped the plastic, and before I separate these, even though I've already done it, I have put it back together. Here is tip number one. And it is a less of an issue with something like this where we've got all kinds of irregular edges. But when doing my hockey one, because everything is a circle, I had a little bit of difficulty once everything was disassembled, knowing which way was up, if that makes sense, because we do have to layer these back together. So here is my pro tip number one. I'm actually going to use pink, nice bright color. You can use whatever color you choose. We can and will paint over it, so don't worry about what color exactly you choose. But I'm going to go ahead, trying my best to keep these stacked. Now this little guy, I wonder if we can do it on this one too. I think we can do this one too. What I'm going to do is take my brush and just a little bit of paint, just a little dab on the end there. I'm going to stand this up, make sure all of those pieces are lined up, and I'm just going to pick one of these surfaces, and I'm just going to do a little stripe of pink down the edge here. So that way when I go to reassemble this, I know that I'm going to line up those pink marks. If you wanted to, you could do one at the bottom too, but I really think just having that top one is the most important thing. And when you paint over the edges, you can absolutely paint over that and it won't be a problem. If you would prefer to leave the naked edges, instead of painting it, you could use a pencil. Or you could even use a Sharpie. I did use a Sharpie on one of the ones I did, and it was very faint, very hard to see. So it will blend in even if you don't paint over it. But that is pro tip number one. And just so that I have it all lined up, let's see if I can figure out how this one goes back in here. See, I should not have moved it. There we go. There we go. So my top little knob to match up with that bump is this little knob here. So let's just bloop, 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 so that I remember where it is. And that way it can line up and we can get everything back in shape. All right, I'm just gonna put my brush in the water here so we can get cleaning off while we get the rest of this set up. Close it up. I tend to always close up my paints when I'm done because I have been known to knock things, dump things, spill them. So, oh, and see, I've already, look at me. I'm already making a mess here. You guys probably can't even see it, but there is a little bit of pink paint over here that I don't want to get where it goes. Okay. So the next step, this is a choice. When I went and had a paint night with my girlfriends when we were making samples, we all approached this in a slightly different way. I'm going to show you my way. Not that it's the right way, but it's the way that I found most easy because I like to spread things out and see where I'm going. So I just took it layer by layer and spread it out and tried my best to keep it in order. Now you do have the picture on the box to help you put it back in order when you're all done. But if you can try your best to keep it in order, it certainly helps. Now, because we have our pencil, you could also go and number them. So maybe I will do that. I'm not going to number this one. I know that one's the top, but I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I did try to aim for places that I know is going to get covered up. I mean, for the most part, everything's going to get covered up except that top layer. And I will tell you that when you paint over the pencil, you cannot see it go through. But that'll help us, at least in the short term. Though I guess if we're painting over it, we're losing the numbers. But you know what? We're just going to go with it. So now I'm in order, and now I can start planning my colors and planning how I'm going to paint. Now I have gone ahead and I have done these 2 layers in advance. And that is because the one thing we have found is that the white paint really soaks into the MDF that this product is made out of, and you do need multiple coats. So I went ahead and did that just so I can have that nice and dry before tonight. The other thing I did is, so the snow here, because I was having trouble getting that snow very opaque, I also brought in some blue and just kind of blended it together. And I'll show you on a couple of different layers. And then what I did is I dug into my craft stash. And this is where we as crafters have an advantage, is we've got tons of fun stuff in our stash. I pulled out my fairy dust paste from Lawn Fawn, which is a sparkle paste. And I've also put that over top. So my snow is going to sparkle. And then when I layer them together, I know I've got those 2 layers of snow. And look how fantastic that looks. Okay. You're saying, Sheri, stop talking. Let's get painting. Okay, so we're going to start from the bottom and work our way to the top. So let's move. Actually, I can probably, let's go back to stacking these just so I can get them out of the way. If you're working at home, you've got all the space in the world. You don't have to worry about restacking them. But I am going to take my bottom 2 layers, and this is where we're going to start doing some planning. So if I look for my little pink dots, I line my pieces up. I can see that of this 7th layer, this back layer, all I'm really going to see when I paint, or when this is assembled, is this back area. So I don't need to spend time and waste paint painting the entire thing. I just have this little opening to do. So what I like to do is take a pencil, make sure everything is lined up, and we're just going to loosely trace that opening. Lots of fun little bumpity bumps around the cabin. Oops, my pencil's getting stuck there in the corner. And there we go. So when I take this away, I know that this center area is all that we're going to see. Now, if I refer to my box, the box is going to give you ideas. You don't have to follow the ideas, but it is a great starting place. So back here, we've got a nice kind of bluey sky. And we've got a couple of different blues in our paint pots. So we've got a light blue and kind of a medium denim blue here. We've got some tealy blues, and your black may also come into play here. You can use this mixing guide and mix off to the side. But when I watched one of Lindsay's videos earlier today and then practiced it on one of my sample pieces, it's actually quite easy to mix right on the spot. So I'm going to start with my darkest color and build up to my light. There is a little bit of a thinness to this paint, so some of those darker layers are going to kind of shine through. So I'm going to actually start with black, and I'm going to paint this area. You do not have to be precise. It is going to get covered up. The only downside to starting with the black is that when we go to clean our brush, we have to make sure we do a really good job of cleaning it so we don't cross-contaminate the other colors. Folks, if you have questions or anything else, please do pop them in the comments. If possible, start with the word question if you have a question, and I can grab them, or if I miss it, I will catch you after the live. Okay, so my brush, still a little bit damp, but all good to go. Just grab some paint here, and I'm just going to fill in this area. As long as I'm covering up and overlapping that pencil area, then I know it's going to be enough to fill in that opening. And you can see it really soaks in pretty quickly into the MDF. And you don't need a lot of paint. It'll really travel far. But I do know if you are crafting with younger crafters, they get a little overexcited. They get a little overzealous. So there we go. There is our black. Try to get some of those brush strokes out. And now I'm going to give it a good clean. Now my water's really dirty right off the start. That's why I have two. That's why I have two. Okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this medium blue next. Really make sure that brush is clean. I might already start switching to my clean water. But then I can just grab some of this blue. And you can see already that even though it's soaked in, even though it looked pretty dry, we are getting a mixing of that blue and that black. Now, do be careful. If you've got some extra black on your brush, be careful before you go into that blue. Here we go. Lots of good paper towel. So it's almost looking a little bit like a night sky. Maybe I'll go over, do a little bit more. And when it comes to sky, some of those streaky marks definitely just add dimension to your sky. And shall we add that lighter blue as well? I think so. All right, let's give that a wash. One down, open this up. And if you need to double check, if you need to make sure that everything is going according to plan, you can just make sure all those things are lining up, and yep, everything's looking good so far. Try not to actually lay it down on top because that paint is still wet. But let's grab now some of this light blue. And you can stipple, you can stroke, you can dab it in. Just again, don't want to get the black too much into my lighter color. And because we're not assembling this till the end, oh, I just got some black in my light blue. Darn it, darn it. Do as I say, not as I do. I could go back in once it's dry and add in some clouds as well, which we can definitely do. Okay. So there's my sky. Okay, so that first layer is now done and it just needs to dry. So let's find a safe spot to put this. I've got a spot over here. And because I didn't cover it up, I still see that that's layer number 7. Good. All right. So now we're just going to repeat. So here we've got layer number 6 and layer number 5. Well, look at that. We don't even necessarily need to trace. Layer number 6 is literally just the dark areas of our log cabin. So that one I am going to go back in and just paint in black. This one here has a red cabin. I might do more of a brown cabin, but again, maybe we can mix those colors. Okay, back to black, back to black. Let's clean that brush off. So I don't even need to do pencil marks. All I need to know is that I'm only covering up that cabin silhouette. So back to my black. And hopefully you can see what I mean about having them in that row does help us anchor the paints. Now, in most cases, you should only have to do one coat with the exception of that white. Or if you are mixing right on your piece, if you want to go back in and do a second coat later, you are more than welcome to. So long as your paint lasts, you are good to go. I'm just going to put my finger in here, get rid of that extra. See? Messy. Told ya. Okay. So layer number 6. That's all we're going to do to it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay. Number 5. Why do I feel like my pieces were out of order, even though they shouldn't have been? Because is the cabin, yeah, see? Something, oh, I guess you have options. You can either have your cabin kind of hidden in behind the trees, or you can do the trees in behind. I kind of like the trees in behind. So now we're going to have to reverse our steps a little bit. But you know what? So this would actually be, so this is now 4, this is 5, and this is 6. Okay, we'll come back to that. I don't know how those got mixed up, but I know I can trace even with this being painted. And I'll probably just paint all the trees in those little areas. Because of course you can go deeper. Yeah, so I'm really just doing these tree areas. Okay, we're recovering. It's all good. There are 3 lovely shades of green here. I'm actually going to open them all up. Make sure I don't have paint on my fingers. There we go. Get rid of that black. And see, just by gently pouncing on my water here, I think this one's already going in the trash. Get another piece. All right. Do some clean water. Let's do some green. So again, I'm just going to do a quick reality check. Yeah, even though I've got some of these areas kind of marked off as not needing paint, it doesn't hurt to do all of the tree areas. So let's start with the darkest green and just go on like this. In those areas, let's go all the way down. Let's get all the tree. And this is one of those instances where you may need that toothpick. I'm going to deliberately do too much paint here in this little area here. So if you've got little areas where you might get too much paint, this is where your toothpick, or you could use your pokey tool, but that you can just go in, clean out the excess paint, just as if you were getting some spinach out of your teeth. And we'll just save that because you never know. I may have to do another one. Again, trees are very natural and very dimensional. So if you decide you want to, stipple and get some texture, make sure I get all the way over to that edge on this side where my pencil mark was, because the wreath is gonna hide it. And because we know we have another green layer that's gonna come on top, we have to be conscious of the color so that we have contrast. So I think the trees I'm going to keep on the darker side, and then when I get to the wreath, I'm going to do the lighter shades of green. Maybe even bring some blues into that. All right. Make sure I've got some clean. So here, again, you don't need a lot of paint, but let's just bring in some other colors here to give it some dimension. I'm just using the end of that brush. See, you don't need a lot of tools. You just need a sense of experimentation. So look at that. Look at how fun that's starting to look. And because I think I might be needing it over here, look at that. Really happy with that. I'm going to let it dry. Because this is a snow scene, we then might again want to go in with some white, but I want this to be dry because I don't want the white to mix in. I want it to sit on top. So that is now our new layer 6. We've done our new layer 5, and now we're going back to our cabin. A little bit of paint on my surface here. And now it's wet. There we go. So I can close up my greens. I'll be back to them. So what do you guys think? Do you think a brown cabin makes sense? A log cabin in the forest? Oh, my black is open here too. Because I've got black on that under area, I want to keep this nice and bright so that it stands out. Let's do the brown. And you know what? I'm going to be adventurous. I'm going to do an undercoat of red so that brown mixes in with that when we get, but then that way it's the brown is the color that sits on top. All right. And you know what? Like all of our crafting, you kind of get into your zen. I'm finding this very chill and relaxing. You could put on your favorite Christmas movie. Just going to blot that a little bit and paint this up. Again, a fun thing to do with the family. Have a paint night or your girlfriends. You know, if you're, it's kind of like a cookie exchange, but it's a paint night. You could do a cookie exchange and a paint night because, you know, cookies and painting. I'm in. Make sure I get invited. All right, so there's our red cabin. I'm coming down a little bit, not that I think it's going to be seen, but just in case. And I did a pretty good job making sure that I didn't get in any of those openings. But if you did, that's where your toothpick is going to come into play. And now let's clean that. Oh, that dirty water is really getting dirty. Okay, let's do a layer of brown on top. Ooh, that looks really good. I'm really happy we did that. Now, depending on how realistic you really want to get, once this is dry, you could go in with the gray and paint that chimney so it's more like a stone chimney. But I don't think I'm going to worry about that too much. Look at that. Gives it kind of that browny red color. There, I'm super happy with that. Okay, so layer number 5 is going to sit to dry. Running out of spot. Okay, what is our next layer? Now we're into the second set of layers here. Oop. Clean up my mess before I add to it. Okay, so I'll leave that one to last. So we've got 3 layers left here. 2 of which I've already done, so that'll save us some time. So we've got layer number 3, which has our snow. And you might be wondering why that snowman is blue. Well, because the way they constructed this one is they layer on top so that there's a little bit poking through for his scarf and through the tip of his hat. A little ribbon on his hat. Not sure if it's showing up super well on the camera. So that way I just painted that whole thing blue. Didn't worry about his arms because they're gonna get covered up. But there we've got our little snow hills coming together there. These are nice and dry, so I don't have to worry about those. And now this guy here. So this is our topmost layer other than our string of lights, and it is our wreath. Now, I'm interpreting it as a wreath, just like they have on the box. But if you wanted to make it a little bit more abstract, if you wanted it to be a silver wreath, you can paint this any color you want. There is no right or wrong. But in the interest of following instructions, I'm going to go ahead and treat it like a wreath and paint it green. And we were talking about the snow on the tree, so you can see that they've done that there too. But we want to do some contrast. Back to my 3 greens. I think I may also bring in some yellow and some blue. I think we're going to get really fancy here. See what we come up with. This one's going to take a lot because we are covering the entire surface. All right. So I'm going to do darkest green. I'm not going to do that medium green this time. That was on the trees. Let's go into this lightest green. Let's open this yellow because yellow and blue make green. And let's go with this blue. So I got all kinds of colors open here. Just be careful, again, as you go back into your pots, just make sure that your brush is clean. Now, I'm not seeing any comments. Hopefully you guys are just following along, enjoying the process. If you do have questions, let me know. I don't want to get to the point where I'm singing because we might get blocked for copyright infringement. Maybe drop a note in the comments for me as I'm painting this wreath here. What is your favorite Christmas movie? You guys have probably heard me talk before. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, but I have a real soft spot for Jim Carrey's The Grinch. That was the last movie that Matt and I saw in the movie theaters before our eldest was born. And you know, I have always loved the story of the Grinch ever since I was a child myself. So definitely holds a place near and dear in my heart. And then my newest favorite Christmas movie is Spirited with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. All I can say is Ryan Reynolds singing and tap dancing, not to be missed. I have the soundtrack on repeat. I sing along. I don't dance along, but all right. So this first layer is almost done. And see, it really doesn't, even though this is the biggest layer with the most coverage, it really does not take long. And then we can have some fun. Clean that brush out. Okay, let's go in with some of this lighter green. And again, I'm just gonna kind of stipple it. Give it some dimension. Looks nice and festive. Let's kind of maybe soften it out a little bit. There is totally no right or wrong. We're just having fun here. And when it all comes together, it's really going to come together. I'm going to leave those greens open just in case when I go in with some of these other colors. So, you know, I know I said I was going to mix on the spot, but maybe with this yellow and blue, let's just do it. Let's do it over here. I'm just trying to see if I can get a darker green. Though that now looks a lot like that first color I started out with. So what do you think? Maybe a little bit more blue? All right. We're just going to go with it. Oh, it is a slightly different shade. Just make sure that if you are doing this on your glass mat, give it a good clean before it really dries out. Doo-doo-doo. Okay, so Santa Claus movies with Tim Allen. Absolutely great favorites there. Lauren's is the Christmas story, and Josie likes the Christmas shoes because that is a beautiful message. And you know what, Josie, you said it makes you cry every time. I hear ya. Sometimes a good cry, though, is what a good movie is all about. All right. I think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. But look at how that's coming together. So this one I'm going to set aside. I'm going to grab a paper towel and put it behind me. There we go. And let's clean up. Because then the last layer is that garland. And I mean, you're getting the idea now. Actually, maybe I'm going to leave that garland, those light bulbs for right now. Where are we for time? Oh my goodness, we've been doing this for almost an hour. Yeah, so definitely I'm going to leave my light bulbs. No, you know what? I've got everything out. Let's go big or go home. Don't do things halfway. Let me just get, I think black is probably the most appropriate color for that wire. We started with black, we're ending with black, coming full circle. This one, I'm not going to do anything fancy with it. Getting some gobs there in my brush. All right. Oh, too much. Less is more. You can always go over it again. But I do have a second shadow box all ready to go. It's all nice and dry because that's the key. Before you go to glue all of this, you do want to make sure all the layers are dry. It does dry pretty fast, but if it's wet, then it's just going to get a little bit mucky. More so from your fingers. And you know what? You want to make sure that the glue is going to actually adhere. So if the paint is still wet, the paint is not set, then it might affect how you glue things together. So I do have a different shadow box that I was prepping earlier this afternoon, having fun with that. And not only will that help me show you how to glue this all together, but I'm going to show you some different things I did with that too, which are more appropriate for some shadow boxes than others. Okay. Quickly, get this black. One thing I will also tell you is as you go to assemble it, if you do find that you've missed some spots, in most cases, you can go back. You can go back and fix it. I did that with that hockey one that the yellow had missed a few spots on the top, but sometimes that top layer is very thin and flimsy. So it's a little easier actually to paint and do touch-ups once it's assembled. All right, there's my string of lights. Let's put that, running out of surfaces, folks. Let's put that over here. That'll dry over there. Okay, clean up my spot. And at this point, I'm going to call it done for painting. I know I had said we're going to go back and do some snow and some clouds, but I want to wait till those layers are dry. So I'll do that after the fact and show you guys when it's all done. So Donna says, so I need patience for this craft. You need a little bit of patience. But if you've got the music going, if you've got the movies going, you won't even notice the time, and gives you an opportunity to clean up. Okay, so let's move on to, let me get rid of this. Let's move on to my dry one. Do I have the box handy? It's over here. So the other one that I prepped for today was this one that's called Finding Your Way. It is a travel one. And the minute that I saw this, I thought, I don't want to paint every layer. I'm going to use some of my pattern paper. And that is exactly what I did. So let me pull this out. Is that dry? Yep. I'm going to spread out my different layers. I had to make a slight adjustment on that one, so I think it goes this way. Now, some of the layers are very intricate, like the earth, the continents. Those ones are very intricate, and I would not recommend trying to do pattern paper on that. But on some of the larger ones, here I've used some travel paper. This is actually the bottom layer, the base layer. And all I did was I put glue on the wood piece, put it face down onto the paper so that the side I wanted showing is showing. Once it was dry, I then just use an X-Acto knife and cut around it. Easy peasy. I did the same with this layer. Now this one was one of the donut layers, so I just made sure I put glue on the donut part, glued it down, and then I was able to X-Acto knife and cut them out. So when we go and put this all together, we're going to have a real mix of the painted pieces and the pattern pieces. The other thing that I did that was a little bit different is here on this piece here, I don't know if you can see it very well, it has north, south, east, and west on here. And that is going to go here on this red layer, which I think looks spectacular. However, because the openings were small and the pattern paper, the polka dots made it a little bit busy, what I did is I took just my little 3/8 circle punch and I cut little white circles for in behind, glued it down, so that way the white is showing through with the layers. Nancy is asking, can you tape yourself doing the snow unless you did it earlier? We can try, or you know what, if I get through this and you want to hang on a few more minutes afterwards, I should be able to, it should be dry by the time we get done. It's going to be very similar to what I've done with the other layers, but because the layers will be dry, it's not going to blend in quite so much. Excuse me, just making sure I get all the questions. Yeah, okay. So when it comes to gluing, again, sorry, Donna, you do need a little bit of patience, and you just have to be methodical and go layer by layer. So now that I have these all set out, and this is the one that I did the Sharpie mark on it, and you probably aren't going to see it on camera. I've got a little Sharpie mark right here. So I know that as long as I line up my Sharpie marks, I should be able to get this in order. Now this one has the added advantage that it has these little points. But there are times where you will have choices because it is symmetrical. So I'm still glad, I'm still glad I did the Sharpie here. So I make sure that I get the world the right side up. Let's do we want to see? Okay, this one looks like I don't have a lot of glue in this one. Yep, not a lot of glue in that one. Let me find one of my other ones. And it's the one that's labeled glue. That's how you know the difference between the glue and the white paint. So in all cases here, my glue is almost run out. So I will switch to my collage medium at a certain point. Yeah, so if you are going just with what's in the kit, this is where you're going to need that little makeup tool. You're going to need your glue. Open it up. And like I said, this is just Mod Podge. So if you have Mod Podge in your stash and you need more, that's great. Otherwise, your Distress Collage Medium will also work. And I'm going to flip this over. Use my little makeup sponge to get some glue. Put a little bit in the middle, but you don't have to go edge to edge. It's really these larger areas where you're going to want the glue, because that's around the outside is where it's really going to need to stick. So I'm going to, again, if you are crafting with littles, they're probably going to have a little bit easier control with these little makeup sponges. There we go. Can I get a little bit more in that one little spot? Or probably could. There we go. Scoop some from over here, bring it over here. And now let's make sure I get my world the right way up. There's my Sharpie mark. There's my Sharpie mark, so I know I'm right way up. And you're just gonna set it down. Now, while the glue is still wet, you can still shift it a little bit to make sure everything is lining up. Do your best to get everything even. And if you work layer by layer and make sure that those two layers are lined up, then all of the layers are going to be lined up. Now, having said that, if they're a little bit off, I think you're going to be the only one who's going to notice. So don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. Okay, so that's the first two layers. I'm going to switch to my collage medium, again, in the interest of time and because I can. This is one where you have a choice. So the way the kit, I took the kit apart, and if you look at the box, the airplane is going up and to the right. But you could have the airplane going up and to the left. You could have it going across and to the bottom. This way, to me, looked the least appealing, quite honestly. But maybe you're doing it to remember a trip down under, and maybe that makes sense. I'm going to go back to my original way and have the airplane going up and to the right. But this is, this is where you have choices. And did this clog again. That's what happens when you leave it with the cap off. There we go. So just little squiggles around the donut. Try to get the points. And again, you don't have to worry about the middle because the outside is going to be secure. Get that point, get that point. So don't sweat the details unless you really are worried that it's going to, for some reason, have some wear and tear. All right, flip. Line up my points. I know that this is the way I want it. And there we go. So while this is drying and while I'm giving this a good little squeeze to make sure that my points are lined up, I'm going to just show you again. So this was using a red polka dot pattern paper. And I also went around with a red ink. Now that outside edge probably was a waste of time because it's going to get covered up. But I know that this inside edge is going to be seen. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. Both edges are gonna, no. Only the inside edge is going to be seen. But for me, that just covered up the white edge of the paper and gave it a little bit more dimension. Just like when you're making a card. Okay, so there we go. And so on and so forth. So this one here, do my points. Do a layer. Okay. North goes at the top. Push it down a little bit, make sure everything is lining up, and you can see how it's coming together. And don't fiddle with it until it's dry. There we go. Okay, let's give it a push. Get the next layer ready. And this one, I think I am just going to go around that outside layer, get my points. And the inside layer. And this is where I do find having a glue bottle versus the little makeup sponge makes things a little bit faster. Where's my Sharpie mark? Oh, there it is. Had it right the first time. So that goes over top. Points are lined up. Press it down. And then this is where things, again, become a choice. I could just leave it like that. I don't necessarily need, and you do have to be careful with some of these really thin ones. Oh, but you know what? That extra layer just adds a little something something. All right, let's finish this up. Here comes the peanut gallery. Not saying anything, just watching, just watching. All right. There we go. So now at this point, I would say it's, go around the edges. If you got any glue oozing out, clean that up because it's easier to clean it up when it's wet. And then I'm going to leave that to dry overnight. Where's my toothpicks? I see a little bit of glue up here. Okay. So that is our travel one. What was it called again? Find Your Way. So you can use the paint, you can use the pattern paper. It might also have been fun to, maybe not on this one, but with the snowman, for example, you could omit the snowman and put a photo in behind. I think there's lots of ways that you can get creative if you want to turn these into even more meaningful keepsake pieces. But I love this. I think this has turned out really well. What I might do once everything is dry, I might go in with some glossy accents just on the airplane so that it has that extra sparkle and shine. But I also might just leave it and make sure that I don't mess it up. All right, so that is that. Now, Nancy had asked me to go in to do the snow. Let's see. My sky is still wet, so I don't want to do the clouds just yet. I think we should be okay. Let me get a new baby wipe, get the glue off my fingers. So while I'm cleaning up my hands here, let me just talk about this snow. So again, Nancy, just so you know, what I did is just like I had done on the other layers, I had traced where the opening was going to be. No, it was this one. Oh, and then the wreath, which is drying behind me. I traced where the opening was, and I painted in a couple of layers of white. And I was finding that it was still a little bit not quite white. It was a little bit off white. So I took some of that lightest blue, this light blue here, just stippled on it to bring in some color, stippled over it with the white again, let it dry. And then I applied some of the Lawn Fawn Fairy Dust, which is sparkle paste. You could use the Tim Holtz Snowfall. You could use Simon's Astro Paste, any of those things. And that just gave it that extra little bit of sparkle. And I applied that with a palette knife. And you can probably see that I left all of those bumps and texture because snow is not always smooth. So that is how I did the snow on the wreath part. Now the tricky part, and maybe not so tricky. Let's close everything up. Quite honestly, this little guy, I will probably just throw him out. I've saved this one, but once they're gluey, I don't know how well they'll be reusable. You can get those little makeup applicators at the dollar store. All right. Because we're going in with white, let's really make sure our brush is clean. Okay. Now, if you look at the box here, they've covered a lot of that tree with the snow. That's a little bit much for me. I'm not a fan of that one. Not my taste. But, yep, that is still the white. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. My brush is dry. You don't need a lot of paint. So just got a little tiny bit, maybe even blot it off a little bit. And I'm just adding a very little bit. Oh, see, I got too much there. Now, when you've got snow on the trees, it tends to nestle on the points. So there we go. And sometimes you just have to have faith, because on its own, you might be like, oh, I've really made a mess of this. When you layer it up, you're going to love it. Okay, so get rid of some of that. Let's do the other side here. Again, really get those tips. And then bring your snow drifts in. But again, it's very important with this white step that your green layer is dry. Otherwise, you're just going to get really light really light green. Sorry, I'm trying to read Nancy's comment while I'm answering it. Yeah, so the trees are fine. So that way I've got those trees. And quite honestly, my clouds, I'm going to do very much the same way. Let's give it a try. If I start mucking it up, then I will stop, because it is still a little bit wet here. But again, just a little bit of white on my brush. And let's do, a little cloud here. And let's do, actually, I should make sure it's up so that my clouds don't end up being sideways. That would not be good after all this work. All right, and do some clouds, little wispy clouds. Yeah, see, over here is where it's just not going to be as impactful. So I'm going to leave that white space, or that space for now. But you get the idea. So that's where my clouds are going. And I don't want to get too deep into this, because I don't want the layers to get mucked up. But let's see what we can do. Okay, line up my pink dots. See, look, those beautiful clouds I just did are actually going to get covered up. Oh, I missed my house. Where's my house? Remember, we're out of order. Oh, because you know why? Because I did that wrong. That's why. You know what? Should be still fine. Trust the process. Trust the process. There we go. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, it's so cute. Pink dot at the top. There we go. So once everything is dry, this is when I would glue all this together. Where's my little pink dot? There it is. So the last thing I would do on here now, obviously if you buy the Frosty set, you will have the light bulbs. So you would want to paint them in the different colors like this. Because I don't have paint bulbs or light bulbs, this is where this is where I would get out my stickles, pick 2 or 3 colors, and create my own light bulbs. But do that when everything is dry. Okay, so let me I'll spread them back out again once I finish up and leave it for the night. But that's how you would build that frosty wreath. So now that I have you totally entranced, now that I have you itching to paint and digging deep for that patience, let me show you some samples. Make sure everything's closed up first. So I showed you this one here, which was called Magical Skies. It is Santa flying over the night sky. Then we had the hockey one, which I think was just called hockey. Pretty easy for that one. And see here, I've done the trees in kind of that same stippling idea. I know we're past Halloween, but we have this one here called the Haunted Pumpkin Patch. I'm just going to start dropping boxes. So thanks to Chris who put this beautiful sample together. She's got some speckling up here to make it look like a starry night sky. We talked about you could have painted those ghosts with a glow-in-the-dark paste to make them really stand out. So that was the pumpkin one. Sorry, now I forgot what it's called again. Haunted Pumpkin Patch. That's that one. We've got One of a Kind, which is a snowflake. Sue put this one together. And again, she's added tons and tons of glitter. Now, if you were more of a purple person, you could do purples and pinks. You could do all the teals. This one really lends itself to doing lots of different colors. Chris also helped us out with this penguin. And see, you could have a lot of fun with northern lights in the sky, coloring his belly different colors, adding polka dots. Looks like she might have even used some Wink of Stella. She used a paste on the snow to make it stand out. And then we go into some non-seasonal ones. Well, non-seasonal one. This one was very popular. I think this was the first one that sold out. We are now back in stock on the My Little Book Nook. Tanya did a fantastic job on this one. Look at all those books. Look at all those books. And Tanya actually went through and painted her little stand as well. So that stand can get painted too. Look at that. She even, created little dots to make it look like a wallpaper. We have the newly created, my goodness, my memory tonight is awful. Find Your Way. This one doesn't seem to be as thick. I think this one had a fewer layers than the other ones, but you get the idea. And then fresh in, and then we have our Frosty, of course, which we just did. We also brought in 2 brand new ones, and we had a few people that were asking for mountains. So we brought in the Rocky Mountain shadow box. Sorry, let me come up here. So this one is brand new. We don't have a sample for that yet. And just to go full circle on our conversation, talking about Christmas movies, we have Merry Grinchmas. How stinking adorable. I know one of these will be staying home with me. So there you have it, folks. That is the Paint by Layers craft kits, the shadow boxes from Our Little Makery. I'm not going to have room for all of them here. Let me switch back over. There we go. Lots of fun painting. We are, a little bit over time, but look, I got most of that done in an hour. So if you are painting at home, it's not going to be an all-day kind of project other than the drying in between. But it's perfect time to go for a cup of tea, a cookie, cuddle with your grandkids, whatever floats your boat while you're waiting for that paint to dry. And we really think that these will make great gifts. So whether it's something where you got a crafty person, maybe your grandkids are crafty, you can give them the naked kits as a gift. Or if you have someone who is not crafty, but would appreciate it. I mean, wouldn't this book nook be fabulous for teachers? So paint it up and then give it as a gift. You can't lose. It's a win-win situation. So there you go, folks. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you for letting me have fun with all of this paint. And we look forward to getting some of these kits into your hands. If you do create one, I'd love to see what colors you chose, what extra things you added in. So do make sure that you post in the Papercrafts Inner Circle or send us an email with your creation. All right, folks, have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you soon.